Okay, I'm going to get started by welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. Today is our Pali Canon and English study group, which I'll explain to you guys what this is a bit later. We're going to start with meditation to help you guys train the mind. This is part of the practices that the Buddha taught in order to train the mind to get to enlightenment. What enlightenment is where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll no longer experience any discontent feelings. You won't experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are eliminated through training of the mind. So I'm going to guide you in a breathing mindfulness meditation session, and then afterwards I'll help you guys to understand what the Pali Canon and English study group is, and then we can actually do that. So we're going to do this meditation with starting with some chanting. I see some of you guys have the chanting sheets. For those of you guys online, you can get these by going to buddhadailywisdom.com, click on free books, and then scroll down towards the bottom and you'll be able to see the daily chanting sheets there. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to help them remember the teachings that he taught orally. There weren't books and audiobooks and videos and podcasts and things like that during his lifetime. So he needed to have some way of helping his students to be able to learn his teachings and be able to remember them, committing them to memory. So every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally. This is the origins of chanting. So you can see from the origins of chanting that this isn't a rite, a ritual, or ceremony, or worship, or prayer. It's none of that kind of stuff. In fact, the Buddha never taught any of those kinds of things. If you see rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, or prayer associated with the teachings of the Buddha, those are gross misunderstandings of his teachings. So we use these chants in order to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. We don't need to be able to chant in order to remember the teachings. We have books and audiobooks and all those things nowadays to be able to study them and commit the teachings to memory. If you read the English translations, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of this, I don't think the Buddha actually created these himself. They were probably created by his students either during his life or after his death, because a Buddha wouldn't walk around and say, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me. This would be the ego or arrogance. This would be putting yourself above people and looking down on others. And the Buddha wouldn't have done that. He would have eliminated his ego. But if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger, sadness, and frustration and all those other discontent feelings to the peace and joy that is enlightenment, you'd probably have a lot of appreciation and respect for that teacher too, because the Buddha didn't want anything from his students or expect anything from his students. So with this kind of practice, his students were understanding that he was just helping them out of the kindness of his heart, out of compassion and loving kindness for his students. So I suspect that these were actually created by his students either during his life or after his death. After the chanting, I'm going to come in with some guidance to be able to help you guys during the meditation. Essentially, I'm going to be teaching you and guiding you, instructing you how to meditate while we're actually meditating. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Everyone here and everybody who's joining online will just all be meditating at the same time. Now, during this time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds because you can't be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. You might hear a car go by, a dog barking, a bird chirping, someone here might sneeze or cough or something like that. This is all normal. If you're in meditation with a craving for permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you'll cause your mind to be frustrated or annoyed. That's actually what's causing the mind to be experiencing these discontent feelings, is that within your own mind, the mind is craving permanence. When you live in an impermanent world, things are constantly changing. You can't live in a world where things are never going to change. That's not the world we live in. So if your mind is craving permanent silence, when you hear a sound during meditation, you'll be annoyed or frustrated, but it's the mind itself that's causing that. It's not the outside world. So when you hear those sounds, you can be at ease, you can be peaceful and joyful, just understanding that the world's functioning the way that it was intended to function, where things are going to arise, they're going to change, and then they're going to fade away. This is completely normal. Then we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand the Pali Canon and English study group. And then in terms of your body position, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times in part of your journey to enlightenment, because your body can't be in the same position permanently. It's not possible. So you would need these different positions at different times. Oftentimes people are learning in the seated position. So I'll give you guys some guidance on the seated position. You can sit on the floor or in a chair. Maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair. You can sit however you like. There's not just one way to sit, because that would be permanence, and we live in an impermanent world. We understand that everybody's body is different. So you sit however you're comfortable. What I'm going to share with you are just suggestions or recommendations, things for you to consider. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This is going to help soften your seat. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might just decide to do that lightly. Whereas if they're real tight, it can impede the circulation and cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use this. But again, it's not about everyone doing it the same way. There's other options here as well. You could put your palms on your thighs or your knees. Some people like to put their palms up, or maybe even rest your hands comfortably in your lap. It's really up to you, however you sit. And the same thing if you were in a chair or on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, you can also sit however you like. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly crossed at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed, so this is an option too. And then you could put your hands and arms wherever you like. In terms of your upper body, it's helpful if it's erect with the sternum up and the shoulders back, because this will keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. A meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be in the middle with the sternum up and the shoulders back to keep the mind attentive and alert, but also to make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to do some chanting, which you guys are welcome to join in on. Then I'll come back in with the guidance after that. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso emakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhammamang สติสัตตาตวามนุสรังพุทโธภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here, you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาโพตังมหาเกวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเกวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมอะระหะสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. This is called breathing mindfulness meditation. This is one of the primary forms of meditation that the Buddha taught. He only taught 4 types of meditation. This particular meditation is designed to help you cultivate mindfulness or awareness of mind. So you'll be aware of your thoughts, your ideas, your emotions, your feelings, these kinds of things. And then it's helping you to also cultivate concentration so you can be focused and concentrated, because this is going to help you make wiser decisions in your day-to-day life, which will produce wholesome results. It's also training your mind to let go, because that's the number one problem that's causing the mind to experience these discontent feelings, that the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. This is actually being caused by your own mind because it's holding on. It's craving permanence, wanting things to be permanent, when in reality, everything around you is impermanent. It's constantly changing. That's why when you were with that boyfriend or girlfriend, you were really happy, excited, elated when you guys got together because your mind was getting what it wanted. But then when you guys broke up, your mind was maybe angry or frustrated or lonely or bored or missing this person. That's because your mind wasn't getting what it wanted. It was craving permanence. It was holding on to that person, wanting them to be permanent in your life, when in reality, they are not permanent. People are going to be coming and going in and out of your life all the time. So this meditation is training your mind to let go, let go, let go. So with your mindfulness or awareness of mind, when you see your anger arising, you can train your mind to let go. let go. And eventually, if you train your mind well enough through all the teachings of the Buddha, you'll get to a point where you're no longer experiencing those feelings, that your mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. This is a permanent mental state that you can experience, where the mind's focused, it's concentrated, you're having clarity of mind and deep memory. Your personal and professional relationships will really blossom, where they'll be at ease, because you won't have bitterness and harshness and hostility in your life anymore, because you'll have trained your mind to no longer have that. And now in your relationships, you can be loving and kind in all your relationships. You can get to the point where you're not even in a bad mood anymore, that it's physically impossible for you to experience that. And this happens through training the mind. It's not about believe, and then hope something good happens when you die. Right? It's also not about rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship or prayer. It's about training your mind, uprooting certain pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind, and that's what's going to produce more and more qualities of enlightenment. So here at this center, we have many different programs and courses to be able to help you guys to learn the path to enlightenment. And on Sundays and Wednesdays, we have something called the group learning program, where on Sundays, I go chapter by chapter in this book. It's titled Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. You can actually get this for free. You can download it from our website. You can take it and go print it yourself. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can get it on Amazon if you have access to Amazon. Each Sunday, I go chapter by chapter. It's a 7-month program where I'm helping students to develop a foundation in the path to enlightenment. Tomorrow at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., I'm going to be teaching here this particular program. We're actually in chapter 18. It's titled God's Creative Actions, You Have Free Will. It's helping you to understand about this being God. Sometimes people think the Buddha never taught about this being. They might go as far as saying the Buddha rejected God or he denied the existence of God. This isn't actually true. For someone who says that, they haven't actually studied the teachings of the Buddha very closely. The Buddha didn't put God at the center of his teachings, because it's not God who determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. He put you at the center of his teachings, because it's your decisions that lead to any results that you experience in life. But he did teach about this being. So you can actually get to enlightenment with an understanding of this being and a relationship with this being, or you can get to enlightenment without a relationship with this being. It's up to you, because this being doesn't decide whether you get to enlightenment or not. So a lot of times people have been taught various misunderstandings, and their mind is oftentimes confused about this being. So tomorrow I'm going to be teaching about this being so that you can understand more about it. So you're welcome to attend that if you like, where we do meditation first, and then I teach for about 15, 20, 30 minutes, and then I open up for questions, teach another 15, 20, 30 minutes, open up for questions. This is like a traditional style of learning. And then on Wednesdays in that program, I usually just do meditation and then open up to any and all questions that you guys have. Then we have various courses and things like this throughout the month and throughout the year. On Monday, I'm starting a course Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's called Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment. This is where you get all the foundational teachings to be able to get really started on the path to enlightenment. And then there's other courses and programs that you'll see as well that I share. On Saturdays, I share what's called the Pali Canon and English Study Group, where we have a book series of 13 books. And on Sundays, we use this first book, where on Saturdays, what we do is we go through volumes 2 through 13, helping you guys to understand the teachings of the Buddha based in his original words. Everything I share is based on the original words of the Buddha, but on Saturdays, we do this more as a study group. And the way that this works is that I have the teachings of the Buddha here. These are his actual words. And I invite volunteers here at the temple and anybody who's joining on Zoom to be able to read a chapter. These chapters are actually quite short. You can see this one right here is just, 2 paragraphs essentially. And after somebody reads the chapter, I will then share some teachings on that. And then at the end, I will open up to any questions that you guys have related to that chapter. So this is more like a study group versus the traditional style of learning. And this isn't where someone would typically start their journey to enlightenment, but that's okay if you're here for the first time and you've never studied the teachings of the Buddha before, because you'll learn plenty, but just understand that there's other programs and classes that are more well suited for people to kind of develop a foundation in the path to enlightenment. If If you would like to volunteer to read here at the temple, we have microphones in the white bowl there in the center of the room. If you could just get a microphone, press the gray button, and you'll see the lights come on, and you can hold this up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online. And you can keep these microphones with you at your seat, because you might actually have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can share the microphone. And if you're not using it, if you could just turn it off, that way we won't get feedback through the speakers, that'd be wonderful. And then for anybody who's in Zoom, if you would either like to read or ask questions, you can do that through electronically raising your hand and then unmuting your microphone, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll hear you throughout the live stream as well. And then if you would like to ask questions, if you're here, you could use the microphones. That would be wonderful, because they won't be able to hear you online if you don't use the microphones. And then for anybody who's in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, you can put your questions into the comment section, or in Zoom, you can raise your hand and ask questions that way. So I'll show you guys how this works. Would somebody like to volunteer to read this first chapter? Sure, go ahead, Leo.
Household practitioners. When one sees one's wrongdoing as wrongdoing, apologize for it in accordance with the teachings. An example of King Ajatasattu, who killed his own father. As I was, in that I, for the sake of the throne, deprived my father.
Sorry.
Wrongdoing overcome me. Fortunate one, foolish, having done wrong and wicked as I was, in that I, for the sake of the throne, deprived my father, that good man and just king, of his life. May the perfectly enlightened one accept my confession of my unwholesome deed, that I may restrain myself in the future. Indeed, sir, wrongdoing overcame you when you deprived your father, that good man and just king, of his life. But since you have acknowledged the wrongdoing and confessed it as it right, we will accept it. For he who acknowledged his wrongdoing and confessed it for betterment in the future will grow in the noble disciple.
Okay, thank you, Leo. So this is a teaching where there's a current king who comes to the Buddha and shares with him that he killed his father. That's how he actually became the king, is by killing his father. And he admits this to the Buddha. And you can see how the Buddha responds here, that he basically just gives him a teaching that is going to be able to help him to be able to say, hey, look, you're making apologies for this. You see that you've done something wrong. And if you are able to do that, you're going to make improvement in this noble discipline. This noble discipline is the teachings of the Buddha. His teachings are guiding you to be able to train your mind, to be able to cultivate wisdom, to make wise decisions. And the Buddha wouldn't have judged this person in a negative way or a positive way or anything like that. He would have just understood that this person made an unwise decision, and now he's sharing it with him to be able to, so that the Buddha can then help him. Because this is what the Buddha taught, that is, if you do something unwise in your life, that you should go to somebody who has wisdom and share that unwise thing with them, so that then you can actually get the help that you need to improve. And typically during the lifetime of the Buddha, this was either him or one of his senior students that people were going to be able to talk to about it. Now, this word confession oftentimes has challenges for some people if you've been in the Catholic tradition before, because in the Catholic tradition, they have this whole process, they call it confessional, where you go into sometimes a little box or a little room where there's a priest there and you confess your sins. And now after you confess your sins, they give you this punishment, and you're supposed to go off and, do these particular prayers, and that's supposed to make everything better for you. So you shouldn't look at this word confession in the same way as what you might see in Catholicism, this Catholic tradition. Instead, what the Buddha is saying is, go to someone who's wiser than you and share with them the things that you've done that are unwise, because then you're placing yourself in a position to be able to cultivate wisdom and then make better decisions in the future. If you create a situation where you make unwise decisions and you don't get the help that you need, then you're going to repeat that. You're going to keep making unwise decisions over and over and over again. What you come to understand about this path to enlightenment in the world around you is that there's this natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result, that everything you experience in life is based in decisions that you make. That whenever you make a decision, either wisely or unwisely, you are going to experience either wholesome results or wholesome karma, or you will experience unwholesome results or unwholesome karma. So the whole goal of the path to enlightenment is to cultivate wisdom, because the more wisdom that you have, you can make wiser and wiser and wiser decisions, experiencing more and more wholesome results. By the time you get to enlightenment, you're only experiencing wholesome results. There's nothing unwholesome that is happening in your day-to-day life. Everything you experience is wholesome. So in order to be able to get to that point, you're going to need to cultivate wisdom. You're going to need to be able to see that it's your own decisions that are leading to any particular result. And if you continue to, say, go around the world and blame other people for the things that you experience, then you're never cultivating the wisdom that you need to make better decisions. So therefore, you're just going to keep repeating those same unwise decisions, keep experiencing those same unwholesome results, and your life doesn't move forward. So you would like to be able to put yourself in a situation where you can always cultivate wisdom. Now, coming to the temple like this, you're able to cultivate wisdom proactively, right? That you can kind of get ahead of the curve, so to speak. But in situations where you're learning closely with the teacher and you've made some unwise decisions, it would be wise for you to go talk to that person and say, hey, I talked to my mom like this, or, I stole this money from my boss, or whatever it is. And now you share that with that person, and then that person can give you help and give you guidance to be able to improve. And of course, you would need to have trust in that person, that person isn't going to go share your private things with other people. That's part of the relationship that you would establish with a teacher, that you can have confidence in them, that they're only interested in seeing good things happen for you, and they're not going to go out and say, negative things about you to other people. And then this way, you can feel completely comfortable just going and explaining all the different things that you're struggling with in life. Sometimes students come to me, they tell me that they're addicted to pornography, or that they masturbate 10 times a day, or that they have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 different boyfriends or girlfriends, right? These are things that people share with me, and I need to be able to keep that to myself, right? So that I can then help that person. So once people gain this wisdom to be able to understand this path to enlightenment, they understand that part of the path and continuous growth and development is to be able to share with someone that you've made some unwise decisions. And now you get the wisdom that you need to make better decisions in the future. And then now you can experience improved results, because everything you experience is a result of your decisions. So this particular king, he made one of the biggest unwise decisions you could make was to kill your parents, right? He killed his father. This would be one of the biggest, most unwise decisions you could ever make, because it's your parents that have brought you into this world and provided you the opportunity to be able to now live in this human life and experience enlightenment. And of course, you haven't agreed with everything your parents have ever done. I've never met any child that has ever agreed 100% with what their parents had done, but at the end of the day, they still provided you this life, this opportunity to be able to come into the world. And for our mother, they had to go through a significant amount of pain and heartache to be able to bear us and bring us into this world. And our father contributed potentially to that as well, at least biologically, but then maybe in other ways too, depending on what your relationship with your father has been. So even though we don't agree with everything our parents have done, we can still love them, meaning that we disagree with the choices and decisions that they've made, but we love the person. Loving someone means to have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. So we can have this genuine interest in seeing our parents be well, understanding that we're going to disagree with their choices and decisions. And if you get angry or irritated or frustrated at your parents, it's actually your own mind that's causing that, because you want them to do things a certain way. You're expecting them to do things a certain way. And when they do it that way, you're happy. But when they don't do it your way, you're angry or frustrated. So obviously there was something going on here that this particular individual was very angry, had a lot of ill will and hatred towards his father in order to be able to kill him, right? He had certain expectations of his father, and his father wasn't meeting those. So he thought that killing him was going to solve the problem, but that didn't solve his problem. So at least he got to the point here where he realized he had done something unwise, and now he was sharing that with the Buddha. And I don't have the teachings in this particular chapter after this, but if we go back to this reference, this is a reference back to the original source teachings of the Buddha. You could see what did the Buddha say after this, because he might have given him some other advice beyond just this. But you can know from this and other teachings as well, where the Buddha says it specifically. He says that when you've done something that's unwise, that it would be helpful for you to be able to then go speak with a teacher or a senior member of the community in order to be able to get the help that you need in order to improve that. And that's what's going to help you to cultivate more and more wisdom and make better and better decisions in the future. And then you can kind of get ahead of things where you're not making unwise decisions. So this is one particular chapter. Or I should say one particular discourse inside of this chapter. There's some other ones here too. There's this one about how to behave towards monks. There's this one about an outcast of a household practitioner. There's this one about a brilliant practitioner. There's some others here too. I think we should read this one here. Is there someone who would like to read this? This is a short one as well. It just goes right here. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Brilliance of a household practitioner. Monks possessing 5 qualities. A household practitioner is a brilliant household practitioner. A gem of a household practitioner. A fine flower of a fine household practitioner. Word 5. 1. He is endowed with confidence. 2. He is virtuous, practicing moral conduct. 3. He is not superstitious and does not believe in auspicious signs, understanding karma. 4. He does not seek outside here for a person worthy of offerings. And 5. He first does meritorious deeds here. Possessing these 5 qualities, a household practitioner is a brilliant household practitioner, a gem of a household practitioner, a fine flower of a household practitioner.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So here the Buddha is giving these 5 qualities of a household practitioner that's going to essentially perform very well for themselves in day-to-day life. And he's helping you to be able to understand those qualities that is going to help you in life, to be able to improve your life. And then when you learn the teachings of the Buddha, you do that intellectually. You learn and examine and investigate his teachings, which is what we're doing here today. But then you need to start reflecting on those teachings to independently verify whether they're true or they're false. And then you need to practice his teachings, integrating them into your day-to-day life and starting to make decisions based on those particular teachings. And that's what's going to create the real improvement in your day-to-day life, is making decisions based on those teachings that you've investigated and examined and that you've independently verified. So here he's helping you to be able to see how to improve your life and get to a better and better life. Because while people use this word religion related to the teachings of the Buddha, usually when people talk about religion, it's usually like rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, prayer. There's usually one person at the top telling others what they should or shouldn't be doing. And there's certain rules and commandments. That's not what the Buddha is doing. He's helping you to be able to see the truth about the world and cultivate wisdom and make better and better decisions. So here, these are 5 things that he's saying, if you cultivate these qualities, it's going to help you to basically improve your life. This first one is he's saying that an individual would be endowed with confidence. Whenever you see him talking about confidence, it means confidence in him, confidence in his teachings, and confidence in the community that you're part of, confidence in your teacher, the person who's guiding you on the path to enlightenment, and confidence in your own ability to get to enlightenment. That's what it means to have confidence in his teachings. Because if you have the opposite of this, which is doubt, it's going to basically degrade your mind. If you doubt the Buddha and you don't think his teachings actually lead to enlightenment, if you doubt his teachings, if you doubt the community that you're part of, if you doubt your teacher or you doubt your own ability to get to enlightenment, you're not going to be able to make your way towards enlightenment. Your mind will kind of erode. And it's pretty common for people to come to the path to enlightenment with doubt. So if you have doubt right now, that's okay. No worries. But the way you get past that and gain this confidence is you examine his teachings, you investigate his teachings. Because the more deeply you examine and investigate the teachings of the Buddha, you're going to see that they're true. They're 100% true. And as you practice his teachings, you'll see that they absolutely improve the condition of your mind in your life. So that's how you build confidence, is you see the improvement to the condition of your mind in your life. And over time, you'll gain confidence in the Buddha, his teachings, the community, your teacher, and your own ability to get to enlightenment, because you're actually making your way towards enlightenment. So you're going to need to gain this confidence through investigation of his teachings. And that's going to help you to then study them and actually implement them more and more, which is going to lead to improvement in your life. Then he says a household practitioner would have virtuous moral conduct, practicing wholesome moral conduct, because in the unenlightened state, there's certain unwise moral conduct that each individual has. Like you might be bitter and harsh and hostile with people. You might yell and scream and holler at people. You might steal from people. You might lie. You might do different things like this. You might use substances like alcohol and drugs and things like this. You might be making certain unwise decisions in the way that you interact with people through your speech, your actions, and your livelihood. And the Buddha provides you guidance on the natural law of how to ensure that you're not making those unwise decisions. Because when you make unwise decisions related to your moral conduct, you're going to cause harm to others, and now harm is going to come back to you. And those unwise decisions, oftentimes, it's just a lack of wisdom, that the person didn't even necessarily realize how unwise it was to speak harsh, for example. Right? We'll just use this example. Oftentimes in the unenlightened state with a lack of wisdom, the mind will firmly believe that your mom and dad are making you angry. And now you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile towards them. Or you might firmly believe it's your friend or your brother or sister, your coworker or your boss who's annoying you or frustrating you. And you might feel justified in your harsh speech, but you don't realize that it's actually your own mind that's causing these feelings. And when you put out that harsh and bitter and hostile speech, it's just damaging your relationship. And now it's all going to come back to you. You're going to experience the results of that unwise decision. So because of the mind's lack of wisdom around what is wise and unwise in terms of the moral conduct, an individual can oftentimes be out in the world making all kinds of unwise decisions related to their moral conduct. And when they're experiencing these unwholesome results coming back to them, they will look for other people to blame, not understanding that it's your own decisions that are leading to that. So what the Buddha teaches you as part of his core teachings of the Eightfold Path is how to make wise decisions around your moral conduct so that you won't cause harm to others. And more you see that your relationships can drastically improve and you can have harmonious relationships. So that's why he says this brilliant household practitioner will have virtuous moral conduct, because you've cultivated the wisdom of what is harmful and what is harmless, so that way you won't actually make unwise decisions to cause harm to others. Then he talks about this superstition, right? And this auspiciousness, right? Oftentimes people think that things that happen in life is because of good luck or bad luck, or maybe it's destiny or fate, or maybe there's some ceremony or ritual or some superstition. Maybe it's the moon or the planets or the stars are not aligned, and therefore things aren't happening well for me, right? This is all superstition and auspicious things. Someone might see a black cat and be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have bad luck now. I saw a black cat. Or I broke a mirror, so therefore I'm going to have bad luck. This isn't actually true. There's no such thing as good luck or bad luck. This is the lack of wisdom that the mind has. Every single thing that you experience is coming from the decisions that you make. And this is referred to as the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result. If you doubt what I just shared is true, that everything you experience is a result of your decisions, ask yourself these questions. Who chose where you're sitting right now? Who chose your hairstyle? Who chose whether or not you ate breakfast this morning? Who chose where you live? Who chose where you work? Who chose the friends that you have? Right? We could go on and on and on, right? These are all decisions that you're making, and you're experiencing the results of those decisions. This is the natural law of karma. It's nothing superstitious. It's nothing auspicious. It's not good luck or bad luck. It's not destiny or fate. It's not God or some entity called the universe. And it's not other people that are causing you to experience the certain things that you experience in life. It's your own decisions. And the beauty in this is when you understand it, if there's anything that you don't particularly care for that's going on in your life, just cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you'll experience different results. Where if it's good luck or bad luck, you can't change that. If it's destiny or fate, you can't change that. If it's God or some entity called the universe, you can't change that. And if it's other people who are causing you to experience certain things in life, you can't change that either. But if you embrace and understand and investigate and see the truth that it's the natural law of karma and your own decisions that are leading to any particular result, that's beautiful. Because now, if everything you're experiencing is coming from you, all you need to do is cultivate wisdom, make different decisions, and you'll experience different results. And this is why you can get to the point where you don't experience any unwholesome results in your life, any unwholesome karma. But with a lack of wisdom and this superstition and auspicious thoughts in the mind, you'll never cultivate that wisdom to understand the natural law of karma. That's what the Buddha is sharing, is that a brilliant household practitioner wouldn't have this auspicious and superstitious thoughts in their mind. They would understand the natural law of karma, because now they're going to be making wiser and wiser decisions and experiencing more and more improved results in their life. But if you have this superstitious, auspicious thoughts in your mind, you're going to go to some healer, ritual person, someone who's sprinkling water on you and having smoke and incense around and praying and worshiping. And you're going to think that kind of stuff is going to help you, but yet you haven't cultivated any wisdom to make better decisions. So you're going to go home after all those ceremonies and rituals, and the same exact things are going to be happening for you because you're making the same decisions and you haven't cultivated any wisdom. So a brilliant household practitioner wouldn't be believing in superstitious and auspicious things. They would be cultivating wisdom about the natural law of karma. And that's what's going to lead to the improvements in your day-to-day life. And then he talks about a brilliant household practitioner does not seek outside here for a person worthy of offerings. During the time of the Buddha, we might think that he was the only person teaching, right? But that wasn't actually true. Because if a Buddha lived during your lifetime, you'd probably like to learn from that person. But not everybody knows who a Buddha is. And a Buddha's not going to go around and, declare to people that he's an actual Buddha. So the Buddha had only his students that were learning from him, but there were other teachers who were actually teaching and claiming that it was their teachings that led to enlightenment. And these students were learning with these other teachers. And there were household practitioners who were supporting those other teachers. And then, of course, there was household practitioners that were supporting the Buddha too. And the Buddha knew it was his teachings that led to enlightenment. And if somebody penetrated into his teachings deep enough, they could see that they were actually working. And by the time somebody's done that, what the Buddha is saying is that they wouldn't seek a person outside of his community for an offering. Because if somebody makes an offering to somebody outside of his community, those teachings don't lead to enlightenment, and it's not going to help the world to be able to support those particular teachings. So he taught people that it's his teachings that led to enlightenment, but he didn't teach people to believe that. He taught people to be able to see the truth for themselves. And then if they chose to provide support, then they would know that, these are the collection of teachings that are leading to enlightenment, and let me support that because other people will be able to get the access to those teachings as well. Of course, what you choose to do and who you choose to support are decisions for you to make. But as you learn and grow and develop and you penetrate into the teachings of the Buddha and you see that they actually work, you might decide to actually support that collection of teachings to be able to help other people get access to the teachings as well. And then likewise, he says he first does meritorious deeds here, meaning within his community. Meritorious deeds are to be able to help others be able to get access to the teachings, right? Because as you start to learn and grow and develop and you see your relationships improving, your life's improving, you would like to be able to see other people get access to those teachings. And that's what he's sharing here, is that an individual would be able to have seen that and then help other people to be able to experience that same improvement as well. So this is titled A Brilliant of a Household Practitioner. A household practitioner is someone who's learning and growing and developing on the path to enlightenment from the household life, right? There's ordained practitioners who live at a temple, but then there's household practitioners who live at a house, because you can learn and grow and develop on the path to enlightenment and actually get to enlightenment from a household life. You don't have to ordain. One of the things that people are confused about is they think it's only monks who can get to enlightenment. This isn't actually true. You can get to enlightenment from the household life too. You just need to be more disciplined. You need to actively go out and find the teachings from a teacher, be dedicated in growing and learning and developing on the path. So a household practitioner is someone who's at home learning, growing, and developing to be able to get to enlightenment from the household life. So any questions on this chapter? You can also ask questions on the last chapter too, if you have questions on the last chapter. You have a question? Yeah. We can get you a mic, or you can get a mic. Mm-hmm. So I heard everyone calling you Iceman yesterday. Is that going to be your nickname?
Yes, so I'll be Iceman.
You're going to be Iceman? Okay. He's from Iceland.
Yes. I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. Maybe there's nothing. No such thing anyway.
Affection.
Yeah.
If you get nicknames in a community, it's usually from affection.
It's good.
Yeah.
Yes, we were here at game night last night. It was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad I came.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still stuck in the game with my question. I'm sort of back on the first reading.
Okay.
Because it's confusing to me. This sort of superstition and also karma and atonement or sort of correcting wrongdoings with certain things that you have to do in order to sort of clean. So sort of like the game, we have to name one word. If it's like a scoreboard, somebody keeping score, have I collected good energy? And this sort of thing of making sacrifice, you see it everywhere. People, bringing food or giving something in honor of the Buddha.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to me that people are sort of trying to let go of the wrong done and give something back in order to correct karma.
Okay, let me help you with this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm confused about it.
So the natural law of karma isn't anything mystical or magical. It's not about a bank account that you're depositing into and that you're making withdrawals from. It's not a black cloud that's following you around. And it's not even about punishments and rewards. It's not about who's at fault or who's to blame. It's literally the results of your decisions. Whenever you make a decision, there's going to be a certain result. And when you make decisions wisely, you'll experience wholesome karma or wholesome results. And when you make decisions unwisely, you'll experience unwholesome karma or unwholesome results. So what the Buddha helps you to be able to understand is that you have certain pollutions in your mind. These are referred to as the 10 fetters, 10 individual pollutions. And then at a high level, he talks about it as craving, anger, and ignorance, which are the 3 pollutions or 3 defilements or the unwholesome roots. Some people call them the 3 poisons, right? So craving is the longing, yearning, the selfish desires, wanting things to be permanently agreeable and satisfying. And if you get what you want, you get happy. And if you don't get what you want, you get angry and frustrated. And then when that anger is arising, which is the second pollution, the second poison, then that bitterness and harshness and hostility comes into the mind. The mind attributes it to something external, and then you will typically push people away, or you'll push the situation away. This is called aversion. Or you'll be bitter, harsh, and hostile to people, damaging your relationships. Or you'll put your expectations on people and try to control them and force them to do things your way. And then where all that's coming from is the ignorance or the unknowing of true reality. This is the third poison, right? So everything the Buddha is teaching teaching you in one way or another is coming back to eliminating craving, anger, and ignorance, because that's what's keeping your mind in the unenlightened state. There's exact opposites to these. The opposite of craving is generosity, giving and sharing with others without any expectation of anything in return. The opposite of anger is loving kindness, or a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. And then the opposite of ignorance is wisdom, the cultivation of wisdom about these natural laws. So whenever someone's making an offering, what the Buddha taught is that this is to train your mind to let go, because that's what's causing you to be angry and frustrated, is your mind's holding on. So the meditation is training your mind to let go, but the generosity is also training your mind to let go as well. And the Buddha taught you to do this daily, that you practice generosity daily, right? And that's what's going to help to train your mind to let go. So when you're practicing generosity, that's what you're doing, is you're working to eliminate your craving. And by eliminating your craving, it's automatically helping you eliminate your anger. But there's other things you need to do in order to eliminate anger. And you're cultivating wisdom to be able to understand that something like generosity is important and that this is why you're doing it. So this is what the Buddha taught. But you'll see people that misunderstand, and they're out there thinking like, oh, I stole from my neighbor, so I'm going to give money to the temple, and then that absolves me of my unwholesome karma. This isn't actually true, that you can't steal from one person and give to the poor, and now you don't experience unwholesome karma. So for example, if you went out and you robbed a bank, and then you gave that money to an orphanage, you're still going to get arrested, right? That's your unwholesome karma, right? That's the unwholesome result of your unwise decision. So you can't negate the unwholesome karma. If you robbed a bank and you gave the money to a temple, you can't negate your unwholesome karma. There's nothing mystical or magical here going on. It's just the results of your decisions. You would still be going to jail in that situation, right? And there's other things that you're going to experience too, not just going to jail, because not every person who robs a bank gets caught, right? Some people don't get caught, right? But there's other unwholesome karma related to stealing like that too. So if you can see the cause and effect and action and result, the results of your decisions, that's what you're working to do. And as long as you have craving, anger, and ignorance in your mind, you will make unwise decisions. And this generosity is helping you to knock down your cravings. That's what it's for. But a lot of people don't understand that because they don't study the original teachings of the Buddha. So they don't understand that's what they're doing. And they don't understand this natural law of karma. They think it's superstitious or auspicious, some mystical or magical thing. But that's not what the Buddha taught. And then the more that you dive into the teachings of the Buddha, not only is he helping you eliminate these pollutions, but one of the ways he's doing that is helping you to understand the natural law of karma. So the deeper you get into understanding his teachings, you'll be able to learn the natural law of karma more and more closely. When we talk about awakening to enlightenment, it means to cultivate wisdom. That's what it means. Because when you're sleeping and you're asleep, the mind doesn't understand the world that you live in, that you don't understand these natural laws. So what you're doing on the path to enlightenment, to awaken to enlightenment, is to cultivate wisdom about the natural law of karma. That's what it means to awaken. Because as long as you go through life asleep, you're going to be making unwise decisions that are leading to unwholesome results. And now you experience all this unwholesome karma because you're asleep. You're in the darkness. But if you're walking towards the light and you're cultivating wisdom, you're awakening, now you're making wiser and wiser decisions consciously to not cause harm to others. And now you experience more and more wholesome results. And you can see that in your day-to-day life, where it's not believe, 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 and hope something good happens when you die. It's right here, right now, in this life, you can see your life improving. And that's the indication for you that your mind is awakening. And that's where you build confidence in the Buddha, connecting it to that discourse that we were just talking about, is that you build this confidence because you see, oh my goodness, his teachings are leading to so much better improvement to your mind and to your life. Make sense? Mm-hmm. It just takes a second.
It's beginning to make sense, but I think it takes time to actually fully understand that when I'm doing some gesture, that it's very much on a personal, it's happening here in me.
Yeah.
It's not that I'm communicating to some other entity and buying luck.
Yeah, there's
there's nobody watching. There's nobody keeping score except me. That's I guess something I have to realize.
That's right. There's no one keeping score. There's no one judging your life and deciding if you go to a good place or a bad place. It's all your decisions that are leading to any particular result. Yeah. Okay. Let me see if we have any questions online here. Okay, I don't see any questions online. So let's go to the next chapter. There's several things here. The Buddha's talking about different things like ways to eliminate unwholesome people from your life. He's talking about all these different things. This is a pretty long chapter, actually, with multiple discourses. And you guys can read this if you like, because all these books are available at no cost. You have the words of the Buddha. You have the reference to help you understand where it came from. And then you have words from me that are helping you to be able to understand how to implement this into your day-to-day life. So these are all available for you at no cost to be able to help you. I went chapter by chapter here, discourse by discourse, helping students to be able to understand this. That's why it's so long. And now we get to this next one, which is chapter 52. Would somebody like to read this? It's just this section right here. Yeah, go for it.
Mutual between monks and householders. Monks, Brahmins, and householders are very helpful to you. They provide you with the requisites of robes, alms, food, lodgings, and medicines in time of sickness. And you, monks, are very helpful to Brahmins and householders as you teach them the teachings that are good in the beginning, the middle, and the end, with the correct meaning and wording, and you proclaim the spiritual life in its fulfillment and complete purity. Thus, monks, this spiritual life is lived with mutual support for the purpose of crossing the flood and making a complete end of discontentedness.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So first, let's just talk about what a Brahmin is, because sometimes people don't know what that is. We might refer to this person today as a Hindu priest, right? That during the lifetime of the Buddha, he was teaching in Northeast India, what we refer to as Northeast India. He was born in what we refer to as Nepal. So he was in that region of the world, and it was just basically kingdoms. There weren't countries established yet 2,500 years ago. And the way that they lived their life during that period of time, and they actually live this way today too, is there's a caste system, right? That based on what family you're born into, you were either considered to be wholesome or unwholesome, or destined for a life of bliss and wonderfulness. If you were affluent and rich, and if you were poor, you were destined for a life of servitude and things like this. So there was this very strong class system, or what it's referred to as a caste. And the Buddha was teaching that this isn't true. This isn't the way that the world truly works, that it's based on your wisdom and the decisions that you make that determine what you experience in life, not based on where you're born. But there were people who were born into this caste system. About 15% of society were born into what's called a Brahmin caste. And these individuals were thought to be holy. And they were, because of the family they were born into, that they had this ability to perform rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship and prayers for people. And what the common person was taught is that if you went to a Brahmin and you gave them money, that they would do a ceremony, a ritual for you, and then you were going to go home and your life was going to get better. Right? And the Buddha knew that this was untrue because it was producing all kinds of unwholesome results, because you might go to the Brahmin today and they're like, oh, well, you're having problems with your husband? That'll be $5. I can do the ceremony for you and help you out. Right? So now they do the ceremony and you go home, and you're there a week or 2 or 3, and things are just getting worse and worse and worse. And now you come back and you're like, hey, that didn't work. I need some more help. And they're like, oh, well, that's going to be $10. Right? And now it's like, well, why? I thought it was only $5 to get this up. Well, because he said so, and you can't do anything about it. And you were taught that you can't improve your life. You were taught that it was these individuals that are going to do something for you with rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer, and that's how your life was going to improve. So the Buddha knew that that wasn't actually true, and he was teaching this natural law of karma to be able to help you cultivate wisdom and make better decisions in your day-to-day life, and that's what's going to lead to improvement in your day-to-day life. So these Brahmin, while they were doing these rites, rituals, ceremonies, worship, and prayer, they were also learning from the Buddha to a certain degree about certain teachings that he had, because they were also teaching a little bit of moral conduct with their people who were coming to see them. Right? So the Buddha here is talking to his monks. He says, monks, Brahmins, and householders are very helpful to you. Right? He's teaching his ordained practitioners, the people who are studying the closest with him, because those are the individuals that are giving up worldly life and entering into this life of homelessness, and then being able to share the teachings with others to be able to help them to be able to get to enlightenment. He says they provide you with the requisites of robes, alms, food, lodging, and medicines in time of sickness, right? Because the ordained practitioners, they didn't have like a business on the side, right? They weren't like running some kind of shop or business in order to make money. They were fully devoted to their own growth and development on the path to be able to get to enlightenment. And the more wisdom that they cultivated, they would then have the wisdom to share with other people to be able to help them get to enlightenment. The Buddha taught them that it would be unwise to have a business on the side, that instead just fully develop your own mind, and then you'll have the wisdom to be able to help others. And then when you're helping others, if they choose to be able to support you, then they can choose to support you. And the Buddha guided them to be able to accept things like food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. These were the 4 things that he guided them to be able to accept, because they were living right alongside of their students, where the Buddha didn't even accept gold and silver, which was the currency at the time. He didn't accept land and things like this, anything of wealth, because he didn't need those things. He was able to sustain his life through living alongside of his students, where nowadays ordained practitioners and teachers, they do accept financial contributions because they need to pay for things like water and electric and certain equipment nowadays that we have to purchase in order to be able to share teachings and stuff like that. So the Buddha is saying to his closest students, like, hey, these Brahmin and these householders, these household practitioners, they're very helpful to you because they provide you with the things to sustain your life, right? And he says, and you monks are very helpful to Brahmins and householders because you teach them the teachings that are good in the beginning, the middle, and the end, with the correct meaning, wording, and phrasing. Can't quite see that there. You proclaim the spiritual life in its fulfillment and complete purity, meaning you're helping them to be able to get to enlightenment, right? Because that's the ultimate goal. If someone's who's on the path to enlightenment, they're going to need the wisdom of how to do that. So these individuals, this small portion of society who kind of like steps away from worldly life in order to cultivate their own mind, and then as they cultivate that wisdom, they share it with other people. Those other people are able to then grow and develop themselves. So there's this mutual support. That's what the Buddha is talking about here, right? He says, monks, this spiritual life is lived with mutual support for the purpose of crossing the flood and making a complete end of discontentedness. That's enlightenment, ending discontentedness. If you no longer experience anger and sadness and frustration and all those other discontent feelings, anxiety, stress, guilt, shame, fear, loneliness, boredom, that's where the mind's actually enlightened. But you wouldn't know how to do that if you didn't have the support that you needed in terms of cultivation of wisdom. So there's kind of like these 2 different groups of people. There's the teachers and the ordained practitioners. There's the household practitioners who are still living and working in a household life, and they're able to provide support to the teachers and the ordained practitioners, and they're providing support for the household practitioners to be able to cultivate wisdom and get to enlightenment. And now everybody in society is becoming wiser and wiser and wiser and experiencing more and more improvement. You can still get to enlightenment from a household life. You don't have to walk away from your career or your house or your relationships or things like that. You can actually still get to enlightenment, but you need to be able to have the wisdom to do that. And you wouldn't be able to cultivate that wisdom on your own. That's what a Buddha does. A Buddha figures out how to get to enlightenment by themselves, and then he shared it with all these other people, and then they were able to then help other people. So it kind of propagates in the world or ripples through the world in that way. So do you guys have questions on this? This is talking about mutual support. Yep.
excuse me, what is the significance of crossing the flood?
Yeah, this is like, if you think about your life and you think about, the turmoil that we experience because of our mind being polluted, the Buddha is kind of describing that as like calamity and a flood. And now you can cross that. You can get to the other side of that. But you need the wisdom to be able to do that. And that's where it's coming from, is these ordained practitioners and the teachers who have dedicated their life to be able to learn and understand the teachings and then share it with other people. So the teachers are helping you to cross this flood and end this calamity and this disaster that the mind is experiencing. So a Buddha will tend to talk in extremes in order to be able to illustrate a point, because then you can see it more clearly. Whereas if you just talk kind of on the lighter end of things, people don't quite see it as clearly. Yep. Yeah, you're welcome. And one of the things I'll add here, since we're talking about this, is that remember, the Buddha was a prince destined to become a king. So he wasn't teaching people to support him and give him things because he didn't have money, or that he was longing, yearning for money or material possessions or anything like that. He was fully capable of being fully supported, that he was a prince destined to become a king. He was rich and wealthy. So he walked away from that in order to be able to help people to be able to get to enlightenment. So he was teaching generosity to his students, because as we were talking about, generosity leads to you training your mind to let go, and students would need to practice a certain amount of generosity, but also it was helping his students to be able to then get the teachings that they needed to be able to then get to enlightenment. And it was helping the ordained practitioners and teachers to be able to provide for their basic necessities, right? So this is where this mutual support comes in. Because if the Buddha taught these students of how to get to enlightenment, and they were getting to enlightenment, and they had a business on the side where they were making money, well, when it was time for other people to learn, it's like, oh, I'm kind of busy over here, making money with this business. I don't have time to teach you, right? So he was interested in ensuring that his teachings were continuing in the world. So the students that he was teaching the closest, they actually stepped away from worldly life, and that was able to then help them gain wisdom more readily, because they didn't have other responsibilities like a business or things like this. And then they could cultivate that wisdom fully and then share it with other people. So it was a way of helping the teachings to really continue in the world. It wasn't about the Buddha, enriching himself or anything like that. He knew that generosity was one of the main things that helped him to be able to get to enlightenment. And he knew that his students would need to also practice generosity to be able to get to enlightenment as well. Because he talks about how much generosity he practiced in this life and previous lives that led to him being able to get to enlightenment by himself. So he knew generosity was an important ingredient in the recipe of being able to get to enlightenment. So if he needed to practice generosity to get to enlightenment, other people would be too. So that's why he taught generosity in this mutual support. And also so that the ordained practitioners and teachers wouldn't be preoccupied with this business over here, unavailable to teach other people. So it really ensures the teachings would continue in the world. All right. So what I'm going to do is just end class here by thanking you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and grow and develop. And at the same time, I'll let you guys know that today at 1 p.m., I'm going to be teaching a 3-hour course here. It's called Introduction to the Teachings of the Buddha. If you guys would like to learn in this afternoon at 1 o'clock, I'm going to be teaching you what the teachings of the Buddha are and what the teachings are not. And then I'm going to share with you the very first teaching of the Buddha. It's called the Four Noble Truths. This is the first teaching that you would need to know to really start getting on the path to enlightenment, that in 4 simple statements, you can understand what is the problem in your mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. You can have a real breakthrough to understanding what's causing these feelings so that then you can actually eliminate them. This is where people would typically start. So if you guys would like to learn that, you're welcome to come back at 1 o'clock. That's where I'm going to be teaching that course. And then tomorrow, you guys heard we have the group learning program. And in the evening at 6:30 tomorrow, we have meditation in the main hall. You're welcome to come to that as well. There's all kinds of events that you can see on our bulletin board, on our website, and all these other places. So thank you so much for joining, and perhaps we'll see you guys in a future class. Be well and take care. Sawadee krap. Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.